Thank you once again for joining us for another episode of African Women Empowerment Network. Today we are joined by Magnus MG. We are honored and privileged to have Magnus with us as he shares his experience with depression and also the expectations of men from the society. We must apologize. We've had a slight delay. Well, not slight. We've had a delay with internet. It was with the Zoom refused to work for us. So anyway, we are privileged to have Marcus with us.
Hi.
Welcome, Marcus. Magnus is a father, he's a copywriter, he's a brand storyteller. He says he's an agile, confident, and multi-skilled professional creative communicator with 5 years experience working remotely. He passionately scouts and creates content on trending and relevant issues touching on manhood, tech, and marketing ideas that will provide a change in behavior. I am Catherine Jenga. I am in London, United Kingdom, and Magnus is joining us from Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you very much for joining us, our audience, and thank you. Let us know where we're watching us. Thank you. Welcome, Magnus.
Thank you very much, Catherine. I appreciate it.
Thank you I'm actually really honored and privileged to have you because we've had a few talks and we've said that I realize that your story is very important because you will be sharing your story,
yes,
your experience with depression.
Yes.
So for those who do not know you, Magnus, tell us about yourself.
Well, I'm a copywriter by profession. That's what I do. But I really love just being the father of a daughter. That's one of the biggest things for me that I say is the most important thing I am also supposed to do in this earth, apart from also use my skill and ability to be able to reach people and to inspire people, really, not to motivate. For me, it's really to inspire people to be the best. As the name Magnus came up about as it was really it was not meant to be something that was public because it was a pen name. As a writer, every writer always wants to have a pen name that you can hide behind and write stories that people wouldn't really recognize you for. And then the name started going out. I was like, okay, fine, let me just own it before it goes out, because now people are hearing it and then they're hearing it with me. Let me just own it, and that's how it became that. But really, it was my pen name. So what I do for a living is really I do write copy. I've been in the creative space, advertising and design space for almost 20 years now, and it's been a great journey. I love the fact that being able to use my creative skill to be able to communicate. So I use that skill to be able to communicate and reach people effectively. Being able to help people, to inspire people, and to move people to better decision making in their lives. So for me, Magnus is really a platform to be able to speak out my thoughts and and the things that are in my heart. That's what now I see Magnus as.
That's a good thing. It's a lovely name, actually. I asked you before about the name Magnus. So Magnus, I say to you, I'm very. I must say it's admirable of you, and I also think it's very courageous and brave of you to speak up on your experience of depression, because we all know men sort of don't like to talk, and I don't want to stereotype. So and depression. Where I come from in Kenya, where we both come from, is a thing that can be stigmatized, So for you to stand up and say, you know what, I experienced depression and I want to help others who are going through it, to know that it's okay, that to speak about it and to seek help. So I must say it's very brave and courageous of you. So when would you say you first discovered that there was a problem? What was the first thing that made you realize, you know what, I'm not just experiencing a low mood or dealing with a low mood, but there's more to this?
I would say my journey, I started with just experiencing a lot of difficult emotions in 2011. 2011 was a very interesting year for me. I was working at a big agency, and there was a lot happening, and it was really a toxic environment, a terrible environment for me. It was not working out the way I envisaged it to work out. On this other side, I also had my duties as a husband, and also at that particular point, my daughter was born in 2012.
Okay.
So I had to like start juggling a number of things together. I remember that's the time I also made a big decision to stop drinking because I realized I couldn't really handle drinking and the way, you know, my mood swings and mood changes were. And mood swings, I would say mostly on the low side. I would just, you know, just bury myself in my thoughts. I really didn't have a lot of, I started cutting back on the things that I love to do, especially the creative things, sports. And I really didn't understand why. And I really tried to look for solace back at home. And I would say most men, when we are struggling out there to, you know, to just get, you know, what we need to get, you know, pushing our goals and our ambitions, we always want a safe space to come back home too. And that's one of the things that was a real challenge for me. And being in that ping pong space where at work it's really toxic, at home it was not, and it was a complete different environment for me to be able to, you know, just sit down and, you know, listen to myself. It was really tough for me. So I struggled with that all the way to 2015. I remember I had stopped drinking completely. Then I started having a lot of terrible nights of insomnia. Insomnia, night sweats. I used to have a lot of panic attacks. I never used to understand why. At that particular time, it was really tough for me because I couldn't tell anybody because this was not the usual me. It was really working hard to, you know, to bring down my self-esteem. My partner at that time was definitely not supportive at all. In fact, a lot of the things that I went through, I remember I really struggled a lot because, you know, they were not supportive, they were not understanding. And even as I framed my post today, I remember some of the things that I was told, you know, snap out of it, get out of it, you know, stand up, get up, you know, get out of bed, go and do what you're supposed to do, or, you know, a lot of expectations that were they completely cannot, they're untenable in basic sense. And it was a really tough time for me because I really had no one to talk to. And as a man, I tell men, don't talk. We don't talk about these things. One, because we want to be able to solve them on our own, number one. That's who we are. We are fixers. We try and fix and make things better. I tried so many times. In fact, I was mocked about it. You know, stop trying to fix things. This can't be fixed. You just wake up, go and do what you need to do. It was really tough for me. So in 2016, I left that particular job because it was one of the triggers for me that caused a lot of anxiety, a lot of grief, a lot of emotions for me. And I had to just step away from that job and just go into my own business. Yeah.
So I'm hearing you, Magnus, says that you had a lot of things going on at the time. You had a job that was quite giving you anxiety and was a trigger for you. You didn't find what you'd hoped to get as well was a safe space at home. That was not happening. You also had a daughter come along at the same, a year later. You had quite a lot going on at the time. So you would say that, and I noticed you talked about 2011, and by the time you're leaving the job, it's 2016. So that's quite some time, you know, to be handling all these things that are going on with you, you know?
Yeah.
It's quite a long time.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that's happening. And like I said, men, we try and really just handle and we try and hold it down. That's what we try to do. And the only thing that we mostly ask, and I can bet you very men today are listening because they'll understand when I tell them, you know, you don't talk because you're holding things down. You're trying to get things working. You're trying to put the dots together, make things work. And all you just need is time to be able to make all those things work. So time and of course support. So a lot of that happening at that same time. I stayed in that job until 2015 when I one day woke up and I said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. My mental health was too important at that time. I didn't even know that I was in depression at that time, but I had really tumbled in terms of my self-esteem. I was having sleepless nights. I was having a lot of weight gain. I had a lot of self-esteem issues at that point because I never believed in myself. From what I was told in the office to what I was told at home, I really didn't have a safe space to be able to just sit down and say, you know, this is a place where I can really build myself. So it took me through a series of events, and I know one of the other things is that it really took me through a series of events. It was not just one thing that led me to the depression. I remember one of the biggest things, like I said, for me, home was a very important space for me because I'd stopped drinking, so I never used to go out. I hardly used to go out ever. I used to stay home, watch. For me, I'm more of a person. I just like staying home. I just love spending time with my daughter. That was my joy. That was my peace.
Yeah.
And it was a series of events. So from a job not working out, then I went into business. Business started working out very well, actually. I changed a bit of my lifestyle. I had quite a bit of freedom to do a lot of things that I wanted to do and to build. And being an entrepreneur, I also had some businesses which were aside, which were not, in that field that I was actually in my career. Were different businesses, and I started finding a lot of joy and pleasure in that. So I believe for a moment there I had a bit of reprieve because I was able to do what I really loved doing, and it was working out. Then 2017 things didn't started getting tougher for me.
Wow.
Business started getting really tough. 2018 came, actually 2017 came, and that's the moment now a lot of the businesses, two of the big businesses that I'd been investing in since 2013, just almost collapsed. One actually collapsed completely, one completely stalled. I'd put in a lot of money even from the business that I'd been doing from 2015. I'd put in a lot of money into it, a lot of time, a lot of resources just to get them running. A lot of them were my nest egg, basically my retirement. So a lot of the plans that I'd said making all the way from 2011 all the way to 2017 fell apart. At the same time, my marriage was falling apart. I was in hospital. The first time I went to hospital, I'd hurt my hand. I'd broken my hand. And it was a really lonely time for me. And from there, it was downhill. From 2017 all the way to 2018. The first time I ever went to hospital in almost 35 years. About 30 years. Yeah, about 30 years. First time I ever went to hospital. That was June 2017 when I broke my hand. And from then it was just downhill. Because there was a lot of emotional abuse in my situation. Where I really didn't know how to handle. I couldn't go to the office because I have a broken hand. I'm sick. My moods are low, and then my businesses are breaking apart. I'm losing a lot of money, and then at home was not a safe space. So that was now the beginning of a trigger to just get me out of that space, and now deeper now into depression, I would say.
Wow. That's a lot of loss, Magnus, from 2011. Your business, your work, your businesses, work, marriage. That's quite a lot of loss to deal with. And you said it wasn't one event; it was a series of events. So and you said, so how long had you lived with depression, and at what point did you say, what, this is too much, I need to seek help?
I knew I had a bit of an issue because of the strain, and especially because of the insomnia, not being able to sleep, the low moods, the lack of especially interest in the things that I really love doing. I really lost. I lost all that. I just used to just sit and not want to do much.
Yeah.
So in 2018 is when it was one particular event I believe was the main trigger where we had lost quite a bit of money in the business that I was in. A lot of money was embezzled. It was $200,000, of a business with my partners. And every time I remember that figure, I almost used to get panic attacks just thinking about figure. $200,000, one day it's all embezzled, it's gone. And now I can laugh about it. I never used to laugh about it, by the way.
Yeah.
Laugh about it because it used to be such a painful moment.
Yeah.
Because that's where the crack began. And I remember that day when we were discussing with my partners and we were trying to find a solution, and I was so stressed up. I'd not slept for days. The insomnia. Home was not bad, and on this other side we're arguing. My partners were in the office, and the office at that point was a safe space. I used to love spending time in the office that time, in my office, and all of a sudden, I just woke up and I told him I can't do this anymore, and I walked out. And I remember I went and I got an Uber, and I just wanted to go home. So I couldn't drive, I couldn't do anything, and I just remember I put in the destination and I said, from here to to home. Then when the Uber came, I changed the destination, and I changed it and said I want to go to Aga Khan. I told him, take me to Aga Khan. And I remember he asked me, are you okay? I told him, I'm not too okay, and he just just kept quiet all throughout the ride. I remember when we got there, he was very concerned because I didn't say anything much. I looked I must have looked a certain way. I don't know how I looked. He was very concerned. He opened the door for me and told me, he just, to me, I hope everything goes well for you, because I just don't understand. So I walked into hospital, and this was the beginning of my journey, because I walked into hospital, like any other big hospital, you walk into the triage, they take your pressure first, then they sit down with you later. So I was lucky, there were not very many people. So within probably about 15 minutes, I had been attended to. And when I saw the doctor, the first thing he asked me, what do you want? Why are you here? Because my pressure was fine, but I just told him, if you don't admit me today, I'm going to commit suicide. And he looked at me and told me, why? And I told him, because I have nothing else to go into. I have nothing. And I told him, please admit me today, because if you don't do it today, if I go home, it's going to be over. And immediately he started, he mobilized. He mobilized other doctors. She mobilized other doctors. Another doctor came. They passed me through, from one doctor to the right doctor, actually, finally. And I remember that night was a very difficult evening for me. I can hardly remember a lot of the things that happened, but I remember I had told myself, I'd even planned and said, if I go home tonight, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to take my life like this, because it was just too much. I can't sleep. There's so many problems. It was really, really tough for me. And I managed to get that help from the hospital. And at this point, I just want to tell every single man who's probably listening at this point that, you can get help. And sometimes it's very difficult to talk even to the person that you're with, your partner. I don't know what's going on, but in my situation, it was very difficult to talk to my partner. They didn't want to listen. They gaslighted me continuously, told me I'm pretending, and I need to get my act together. So I didn't have a safe space. And for me, hospital is a safe space. And I tell them, guys, please, 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 if you have nowhere to go, walk into a hospital and just tell them, look, help me. Because if you know, like I was sure, and I hear people say this, suicide is a very cowardly thing to do. And I tell them, no. Suicide is one of the bravest. Suicide is one of the bravest things that anybody can do. It's bravery on steroids. It's the ability to say, I don't care, I don't fear anything, and I'm going to be able to take this next step, which most people can't. If you look many people in the eye today and ask them if they face death, most people, don't even want to have that discussion because it's too heavy on them. But from where I come from, having been in that space, when I hear someone talk about suicide, I take it seriously, because I know this person has got to the place where there's no fear anymore. They're able to do it. And I've personally lost a friend like this. I've personally lost a friend from just him not being able to speak about his issues as a man. And a lot of them, of course, had to do with pressure as a man, societal pressure on a man, either whether it was from a relationship, whether it's from work. It was just he was not able to be in a safe space to talk about his issues, and he took his life. And I know what that feels like. It's the bravest thing. It's bravery on steroids, but it's the bravest thing someone can ever do. And I always tell people, if you've never been in that spot, keep quiet, shut up, because you do not know what that person is going through. Saying that they fear, in fact, they actually do not fear anything. That is how deep those emotions, those feelings go. And as a man, I know, I tell guys this, and I tell them, guys, if you're having a problem, you're having an issue, you don't understand yourself, so things are crumbling and falling apart, a hospital is the safest place to go. If you're not telling your mother or your sister or your wife, who, if you trust her, and why I say wife is because your wife is not your relative. Your wife is someone who you met. So in my opinion, and from where I sit, I did not have the opportunity to talk to her because I was mocked, I was gaslighted, I got to a point where that became tougher for me, and it was not easy to understand. So I know if there are other men who are struggling with this, they're struggling in relationships, they can't talk. I tell them, please go and talk to a medical professional. Walk into a hospital, any hospital, and just talk to a doctor. They'll be able to get you the help that you need. They're the safest place that you'll be able to, speak your issues, and they'll be heard. And a doctor won't laugh at you. A doctor won't gaslight you. You know, a doctor wouldn't tell you to man up. That doctor wouldn't tell you kuwa mwanaume. You know, a doctor wouldn't try and make you feel like, you know, you need to do better. You know, this is weakness. No, a doctor will listen. A doctor will, let's say anyone in the medical profession will listen and will empathize with you and will get you the help that you need at that point that can save your life. Right?
Wow, yeah. Magnus, I hear you, and what I'm sensing that I can hear you say that you had a really terrible, difficult time, and you had to go to the doctor, and that makes me sad to hear that you had to go to Aga Khan. For those who do not know, Aga Khan is a hospital in Kenya, and he had to go get into an Uber, go to Aga Khan, and tell them to take care of him, admit him, otherwise he's gonna take his life. And that makes me really sad to think that that's the place where you are at, you know, and that must be a difficult place, you know. However, it's also brave of you to decide, you know what, I really do need help and I need to go to hospital to ask for help. And I also realized that you said that you're telling guys, if you don't have help, go to hospital, go to a doctor, ask the doctor to help you. You look for help from a doctor. However, I'm also wondering, maybe we as women or partners, we also need to have empathy, compassion, because what I think is home should be a safe place where somebody, if someone is experiencing such emotions, is not well, they should be able to come and tell us. However, we can also say that sometimes we don't have this knowledge, we are not aware that, or probably we are ignorant, or we don't have that compassion. Maybe we need to make home a safe place where if a man is going through depression, is going through a hard time, that he'll find it safe to come home and say, you know what, I'm going through this, and will not be ridiculed. Is that okay for me to say that?
Yes, very true. It's very important that the ladies here, the women who are here, who could be in relationships, especially in relationships with men who are struggling with, just a lot of failure, a lot of depression, especially depression, because failure leads a lot to that. There are many triggers that lead to that. I wouldn't say that your depression, just shows up and crops up. There are a lot of things that lead to that. And for me, but of course, I got a professional diagnosis that I was, it was severe depression, and I ask anybody who really sees a change. You know the person you live with. If you see a change in them, you understand, and starting to see certain things about them that are different. They don't love, especially things that they love doing, they don't love doing. They don't want to talk to you. They don't want to have conversations. They don't want to go out. They want to stay more in their thoughts. They have low moods. They have their bus. For me, it was very low mood all the time. It was almost low mood majority of the time. And if I was not sleeping a lot, I was not sleeping at all. So, and it was obvious, because if you have a partner and you're together, you sleep together on the same bed, so they would know when you're awake and when you're not awake. So when you're in bed and when you're not in bed. So that for me went on for about 2 years. Just that struggle, that entire struggle. There was no empathy. There was absolutely no care. There was absolutely no feeling whatsoever. In fact, I remember even up to as recent as even 2 weeks ago, still gaslighting me, telling me that I'm delusional. It's very sad, because I look at things like that and say it's very sad when people get to a point where they're narcissistic just because they can be narcissistic. I think it's an important thing to understand that depression is a disease like any other disease. You cannot just get out of it. You cannot snap out of it. We need help as men. And there's a statistic today I was looking at. 75% of all suicides are men. Men are the ones who commit more suicide when they're in particular situations, when they get into depression. Women have better support systems. That's the truth. Men, we don't. We rely on a few, if at all, a few, maybe a handful of friends, maybe one or two. In my situation, I remember also a bunch of friends who I had, who I thought were my friends, all disappeared into the woodwork. But I'm glad, I have very good friends. I have very good boys. I call them my boys. We've been together like for almost 20 years now. They held me down. They came. They helped me through things that my partner should have done. They did for me. And my brother also was there. My sister, my mother, like my family was really there for me. at that particular point. It was a very tough situation for me. I'll even talk about the treatment that I went through, because I think that's important for guys to understand.
Yeah.
When I walked into the hospital and I told them that, and they admitted me that same evening, I remember my partner came. We didn't have any much discussion. So I didn't really follow up on that, and I was deep into all that was happening to me. I was taken into a psyche ward. So one of the worst places that I can ever go. I remember seeing people locked up in cages like dogs, locked up in rooms, in strong rooms like dogs. It was really terrible. I hated the experience. I always keep saying that my psychologist made the wrong choice, because that really traumatized me. By the time I left there and went into what we'd call, I got treatment called ECT. So I stayed in the psyche room for about a week and maybe about a week and a half, if I'm not wrong, and then I went into ECT, into a general ward in the hospital. ECT is electroconvulsive therapy. If you don't know about ECT, please look it up. If you want a graphic representation, just Google One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's a very interesting movie that also shows how that ECT is done. But basically what it is it's a charge, a positive and negative charge that is put on your head. I'll explain it how I know it. Doctors explain it differently, but it's a positive and negative charge. And then since you're in theater, you go into theater. You will actually into theater. So you go under, and you don't know what's happening. So they shock your brain. They put a negative, positive charge, and they put a number of voltage, and they shock you for a couple of, I think, seconds. Actually, it's actually a couple of seconds. So when you come out of there, the experience that I felt was, number one, you forget everything. You don't know anything. So you're completely lost. You have zero. It's like your memory has completely been wiped off. You don't remember anything. I didn't even remember how to use a smartphone. I didn't know anything. So on top of my self-esteem already taking a very big hit, I didn't even know who I was. Now I did 6 of those, because you do one and skip a day and skip another day, consecutive days. So you do 6 of those. So I did 6 of those. By the time I left the hospital, each time I left, I went back to my bed. I didn't even know myself at all. I really didn't. I didn't know myself. I have a big blur of information in my life that I don't even remember. Wow. I remember going into the first time, but I can't remember going in a second time at all. That's how crazy it was. Then of course I got medicine. I got drugs for depression. I got of course drugs to help me sleep. I was privileged enough to be able to have medical cover at that time, so it was able to take care of that. But I'll tell you guys, it is a journey that is very difficult for any man, anybody to do alone, whether you like it or not. Let me be honest, it's a very tough journey. I contemplated suicide many times, because I remembered every single time the partner who I was with kept gaslighting me at that point, telling me, get up, make yourself useful. It was almost like I was useless at that point, and I was useless to them at the point where they wanted to throw me out of the house, actually, in that condition. So it was a very tough time for me. I didn't speak to anybody. I didn't tell my friends. I didn't tell my family. And I just went through it. And the electroconvulsive, the ECT therapy is really nasty. It gives you amnesia, number one, a lot. And then again, the drugs also used to make me drool. I remember I used to sit and I would just find a wet patch on my shirt at some point, because that's how much drool. So I used to eat. The only thing I used to do was eat, sleep, because of the drugs. And so I really, really ballooned, added a lot of weight. It was really tough time for me. I didn't want to see anybody. I didn't trust anybody. On this other side, I had absolutely no care, no empathy. My partner never used to talk to me, never used to engage me, never used to bother anything. Used to be very harsh on me, almost threw me out of the house in that condition, threw me out to be homeless. It was a really tough time for me. And I just tell men who are also going through tough times, whether you're alone, whether you're single, or you're with a partner who doesn't understand you, I think it's about time you reach out to someone who will care about you and love you.
Yeah.
Than take your own life, because what I went through, many men have gone through and decided to take their own lives. I had done it almost once. I'm actually almost twice before. I think once in 2015 and once now again in 2018. But I remember after 3 months, because of the pressure of, again, society telling you, man up, you need to get out, you need to go and earn a living, you need to bring money to the table, you need to pay rent, all the things that are needed to be done. And of course, as a man, I was used to performing. I was used to, getting up. I was used to building. I was used to taking risks and, going out and fending for my family and building. And say all this that I was doing from 2011 was for my family, and I'm used to it. So after 3 months I was still on medicine. I was still on the drugs. I'd barely started barely remembering who I was. I remember I could hardly even. I found my passwords after a couple of weeks, because luckily I'd put my passwords all on the cloud. So one day when I was on the phone, and I had fingerprint. So that's the only way I could get into my phone. Otherwise, if it had a password, I knew I wouldn't have got in. So I used to put the fingerprint, and I wonder, what am I supposed to do with this thing? What do I do with it? I can't even remember who to call. I would look at someone and say, I know you, Catherine, but I don't know you. But I know you, but I don't know you. I don't know your name. It's like everything about you has almost been completely erased, but I know we met before. That is how bad it was. So my self-confidence, my self-esteem really hit rock bottom. I never liked going out. I never liked meeting people. But at this point, I'm forced to, go out to bring something on the table again. My partner had put so much pressure on me. There was a lot of infidelity at that point. So I was really trying to prove myself. And one of his days, I remember I'd gone to, my friend is called David, and he had a little small company function. And I was not feeling too well, and I called my partner and I told her, what, I'm not feeling too well today, and I'm here, but I'm gonna go home and I'm just gonna go to sleep. But please, I'm not feeling too well. And she's like, whatever, man. I asked, where are you? And she's like, I'm out. I'm having drinks with my girls. And I remember that because it was such a painful part for me to ask for help even at that point, and she didn't show up. She didn't care. She didn't show up. I remember. What I remember is, now this came much later, when I try and recollect some of the things. After that night, I relapsed. I remember I found myself now in the hospital in a psyche ward with a metal door, with a bucket, and with a mattress on the floor, and I'd peed on myself, I'd crapped on myself. I cannot remember what had happened from the time I was in the house asking her for help to how I got to the hospital, behind a closed door. And it really confused me for a while. So as I sat, and got treatment, I stayed there for another week. I got treatment, and the doctor told me, you need to slow down. You're going to relapse because there are a lot of things that are still very shaky in your life. And I remember I went back home, and I tried to kind of just take it easy. So I didn't go back to work again. I'd got a very good contract, after 3 months of coming from the hospital the first time. Got a good contract, but I couldn't go back to it. So of course that went. I worked there for 3 months. Then I relapsed. So I remember one of the biggest things that I took away from this was I really struggled with a lot of me as a man, my self-esteem, my thoughts, my confidence, everything that I really struggled with. And on this other side, I was being ridiculed. I was being put down. I was being told I'm delusional. I'm being gaslighted. It was a very terrible. It was very terrible for me. And I know there are other men right now who are struggling. I've talked to very many men who also struggle. Their story could be different. It could be also probably worse than what I would say I experienced. And I try and encourage every single man, please, you have so much to offer. All you need to do is first get the help that you need. Don't push yourself to death. And I tell women, please understand, men are we're just human beings.
That's true.
Our pain is the same pain that you feel. There's no pain for woman and pain for man. Unless you're about childbirth, that's a very different story. But pain is pain. The same pain men feel, same pain women feel. And for us, even as men, a lot of times we absorb that pain. We refuse to say. I believe even for you in a relationship, your husband, the things he doesn't tell you, he lives with it. He says, "I'm going to nitakufa nayo." I'll die with it. I'll die with my problems. That's what men do. We die with our problems because sometimes when we reach out, we are also ridiculed for it. When we reach out, we are told that we are weak. When we reach out, we are abused for it. I've experienced this both in professional life and personal life. So in my marriage, I've experienced it from a woman. In a job, I've experienced it from women where they abuse you. They really are manipulating you to a certain position, and it's not tenable for us. It's toxic for us at that point. And for me, I say, you know what? I'm not a good Christian. I've got to a point where I really guard my mental health now. And that's what I try and encourage a lot of men. Guard your mental health, guard your space, guard the space that you're in, because at that point you must be able to fight for yourself, because many people might not understand what you're going through. They might not understand the terror that you have at night, the night terrors you have, the night sweats, the panic attacks, the insomnia, the failure, the self-esteem is at the rock bottom. People won't understand that. And it takes a while for them to understand that, but it needs you to step up and say, look, I'm not going to go down. I know this thought with me. I need help. I'm going to get help, and I'm going to follow through with the help. And it takes a lot also internally to just accept that you need help as a man. And I'm telling every single man right now, first accept that you need help, especially when you've noticed something is wrong with you. Don't wait for other people to finally say, there's a problem with this guy. No, you be the one to say, I have a problem. I need help. When you can accept that, then it becomes easier for you to even go through the process of healing, or of treatment and healing. I know that's one of the biggest things that I went through, just going through that electroconvulsive therapy. I know one of the questions you asked was, does electroconvulsive therapy, ECT, does it change your personality?
Actually, if I may ask as well, I might just interject as well. We have quite a few people watching, and one of the guys here, Keith K, asked, "Do you think ECT helped you at all?" And thank you, our viewers. Today we are speaking to Magnus. He's telling us, speaking with us about his journey of depression, and how his journey of healing and the expectations that the society had for him. So Keith is asking, Keith is another guy as well, he's asking, do you think ECT helped at all? And you also said about the question I asked you about ECT. Sorry, if you can answer that, Magnus.
For me, yes, it did. It did help more than anything else that I ever experienced. It was very scary because I did it alone. I really did it all alone. I struggled through it alone. It's better when you, of course, have someone who can be able to take a part of that burden and pressure from you.
Share with you the burden.
Yeah. However, the ECT really did help. What I noticed immediately was an enthusiasm and almost like a burst of life for me after a couple of days. Not after the treatment was finished. Probably about a week into it, I started remembering some things, and you feel much better. You feel much more there's much more clarity. There's less fog in your head. There's less thoughts, because for me, I have a photographic memory, so I know very well if I see certain things, I'll keep looping those things over and over again. Even listening to certain things, I'll keep listening to looping over and over again. So it really broke that pattern for me that was destructive, that continuous destructive pattern of the thoughts, the words that people say, the things that people kept saying. That really had broken me at some point. And I had to work through in fact, part of my journey for healing was to be able to move past that. And just like I say, I'm just being able to be different. And so, yes, for me, I would say, yes, it does change your personality, not change personality, but it brings out the best in your personality. I showed you something yesterday. I remember when I showed you something that I had written about in my journey and my goals and my ambitions as Morage, as Magnus. So I remember I was able to have so much clarity to go back to some of the goals and ambitions that I'd made back in 2011, 2012, when I was really working out my life. And with I believe the ECT helped me to really focus on that, because one of the things that I really gravitated to right after the ECT, and I got back into my laptop and I could be able to see, was some of the things that I had planned for my life, my goals, my ambition, my vision. And I was able to really just latch onto it and move with it. So it gave me a lot of clarity. Yes. Personality change. Yes, it did that. It also boosted a lot of my confidence to be able to speak out. I believe it did more good for me than the drugs. The drugs for me were very unpleasant, were completely unpleasant for me. For anybody else who might be using drugs, please, if you're using drugs, you know what I'm talking about. However, before you decide to do anything, please ask your doctor, because for me, I did the same. I was going through a very hard time with medicine and also trying to find myself, and I had to make a decision. And of course, I went to my doctor, and I went through the healing process of weaning myself through the medicine, because I couldn't handle the medicine, and I felt like the ECT had done quite a bit of improvement to my personality, to my abilities. It had helped me to be able to focus. That clarity, that mental fog had gone. I was able to just look and say, this is what I want to do, and improve on it. and go back to work and go back to my business and start all over. So yes, it did. Yes, it did.
So it worked for you, but the medicine didn't work for you. Magnus, can I just read some of the comments that we have here?
Go ahead.
We have quite a few of your friends have tuned in, and we have Jamie who says she agrees that home should be a safe place. She also says her heart goes out to you. We have let me see who else we have. We have Evelyn who says, so true, pain is pain, whether you're a man or a woman.
Yes.
And Faith as well asks, do Kenya offer information to family to educate them so they can be compassionate and understand their loved one better? We'll go on to that question. Nuru says, this is powerful. And Goshi says, Magnus, so proud of you, sir. Mental health is a serious issue and very important for any man. You can't man up unless your mental health is in check. There are many sides of mental health, depression, and addiction. Men need to hold one another's hand, which is so true. Nuru also says you're a brave man, and we have someone else says Murage Kabasita, sorry, says Murage, over the years, can you now say you're out of the woods? And she wishes you well. And David says that's impressive. So let's take this question. I think there was a question here. But however, I wonder, because you said you mentioned that you went through this alone. Did at some point anyone come with you to maybe to the doctors, to hospital, to see the doctors, so that they could be given information of what was going on with with your experience?
No, because that was the role of my partner at that particular point. But I went for each and every session alone to the doctors. I went personally alone. It was a I would say it's a terrible experience. For me it was terrible. I braved it alone. I used to go early in the morning. It was torture for me. It was really torture. I hated waking up in the morning to go alone. I hated doing all that alone. I had zero confidence. I could hardly talk even to the Uber drivers I was going with. It was really tough. It was really, really tough for me. I don't like saying it, so people can say, oh, what is it for me? No. That's not the point. The point is, I hope that the men who are listening to this today can really latch on and find someone who they can trust, someone who will listen to them, someone who won't judge them, someone who will tell them, man up. I think I was told that because, and that made me not trust anybody and just want to do things alone. Of course, it was probably not the best decision when I look back, but it was the best decision for me at that moment. And I want to, in fact, answer one of the questions for Kabasita, Carol. Yes, am I out of the woods? I would say no, because something about depression is their triggers. And I'm very, very careful about my triggers. I have been in situations where I've had to make choices which were only good for me. And I've been called entitled, I've been called all manner of names. Someone has used my daughter and just abused me. Someone who I trusted has really abused me for just making a stand for my own safety and my own mental health and my own self-esteem to stand up for it. I've lost job opportunities. People have talked badly about me. People have told me you'll never work in this Nairobi again. And I say that doesn't matter for me. For me, it's about changing lives. And I know at the end of the day, I will be able to change even one life today. If I could look back and save that friend of mine, that one life, I always say that one life is more important than anything else. It doesn't matter whether I lose job opportunities for it. I know others will open up. It doesn't matter whether I will lose, people saying, I've had this before. People saying, oh, you're not mentally stable. I don't think we'll work with you. I'm like, oh, really? Well, no one is perfect. No one is even mentally stable in this world, first and foremost. Everyone has a primal instinct. Every single human being in this world has a primal instinct. Every single one of us means that we can go unstable anytime. So when someone points out, there's a lot of stigma for people who are going through depression, especially men. Women have a place where they can sit and talk together. Women have close friends. Women have a support system. Men don't have. When we come out, we are ridiculed and laughed at. And it's a very difficult thing. So to say that we've got you get out of a woods in a couple of years, it's not true, because there are still triggers that will try and take you back there. There's still people who will say mean things. There's still events that will happen that will push you to the edge, and you have to make a decision whether your mental health is more important. Do you want to slide back into depression, or do you want to stay sane? And you've got to make very hard decisions. That's why I said it did. By the time when I stared death in the face a couple of times, I don't fear anymore to make decisions that are good for me.
Yes, that's very important, actually. Very, very important.
Yeah.
Very important. Because the thing is, I realize is that people are selfish. They want you to make decisions that are good for them. But what about you? Like you said, you've got to fight for your mental health. You've got to fight for what's important for you. And another point I noticed you said is that what support structure do men have? So what I do know, I said to you yesterday when we were preparing for this, is that I had a chat with the male figures in my house, and one of the older ones, who I can say is my partner, my husband, he said, if I can say, our generation and older and maybe slightly younger were being raised, there was not that bit of where it's there's a support structure, at some point. We even had this chat yesterday, when at some point you say that when men are going through manhood, the experience of manhood from boy to manhood, you're not expected to show any weakness. You're not expected to show any weakness through the pain you encounter, and this carries on in life. And at some point it gets to a point where this man will crumble, because a man was created with emotions. He was created just like a woman, but we have different roles. We are created with emotions and feelings. And so what happens when these men are taught that you cannot express what you're feeling, you cannot express your emotions, you cannot show any signs of weakness, but at some point in them, they can feel that something is not right, something is not going on well. So what support structure are we also is there also for the man who cannot express themselves, who cannot say they're going through, who cannot say things are not going the way they expected, And I know one point you said, one important thing you said is that between that age of graduating from boy to manhood, at some point it becomes too much, I remember you saying that,
it becomes too much. We do carry a lot. We do carry a lot of stereotypes. I'll give you an example. For African men, for the men especially who go through a rite of passage. For us, some of us go through circumcision, which is a rite of passage in Africa. And one of the things that we are required to do as men is not to show pain, not to show any fear. And a lot of us went through that, and we, that's our frame of life, that we should not show fear. We should not, that's what we saw life as. We should not fear, we should not show fear, we should not show emotion. And a lot of men have gone through that and are walking right now. Life is different for everybody. Some people are lucky to have gone through life and just went through it and got the right opportunities, right decisions they made, things fell into place for them, and so they didn't have to struggle through certain things. But for a lot of us, for example, for myself, who's I've been an entrepreneur, I've had 5 failed businesses now, different businesses, for many reasons. Some of them failed, and I would say some of them, that takes a dent. It hits on your self-esteem. It hits on your ability to think about yourself as being of value. Now, when we start looking at our support system, it's really we first go to other men. Number one, we first go to other men who are our closest friends. Usually, if you're married, also sometimes the first person you go to is your partner. If you have that kind of relationship, or you have that openness, and we really do not do it at that stage where we feel things are going down. We do it when things are bad. That's just us as men, because we're used to holding that pain. The lens that we were taught was, you don't show pain, you don't show fear. So whatever is happening, just work through it. And unfortunately, some of us have also gone through situations where, you've been pushed to completely to the edge, and you break. And I look at some men who say, no, just hold on. When in Wanaume, you're a man. A man doesn't cry. A man doesn't. Yes, true. And I tell men this, by the way, very clearly, please don't cry in front of women. Don't do it. Don't be duped. Go hide in the corner somewhere very dark. Hide. Right. Don't. No, I'm serious, because very many people who say this, who say that the French women have very bad stories about it. I know there are stories also from there. However, just to protect the men, I tell them, just for your own sake, go and cry. Unless you're sure that this person who's listening is going to empathize with you, don't. For me, I think also from where I come from, okay, I remember I had this experience once, and I showed that, that vulnerability to my partner, and they were very mean and condescending towards it. They questioned my manhood, questioned my ability, questioned my, who I was at that point, when tears were streaming down my face, and that hardened me. And it hardened me completely. And when I hear another man saying, he's at crying point and getting to a point where he's almost, his partner is seeing his tears, I tell him, don't show her your tears, don't, because it'll almost break you. Now, I tell men to just protect themselves to a point where they're absolutely sure whoever they're being vulnerable to is going to be empathetic towards them. That's why I said a doctor is the best person at that point. For those who are lucky to have parents and brothers and sisters, well and good.
Yeah. And also, I asked you these questions before. I'm just wondering whether you say that because you didn't experience that. However, there are some people who, if they went to their partner and said, you know what, I am struggling, they will be supported. So what you needed at that time is empathy. You needed compassion. You needed not to be judged. And you didn't seem to receive that. So this is something that we are saying. We as women, we need to, we are not minimizing that women, we go through a lot of stuff, that we have it difficult. However, let's also appreciate and acknowledge that men also do go through difficult times and difficult situations. And we as the mothers, we as the wives or partners, sisters, aunties, let's be kind to men. Someone says here, Jerome says, Magnus, yes, society can be unfair to men when it comes to identifying their feelings of sadness, desperation. Surely women need to accept that you have emotions too. And we've said that, She also, he also says that you're brave, you're strong, and you're current in COVID season and beyond. And then further, another person says, courage, the boy child needs a real support system, not the regular bar/bottle stint. So that's what we're saying. Where is the support system for men who need help? Where are the structures, apart from like Sammy said, not the regular bar/bottle stint,
Yes, it's true. It's very true. We really don't have support systems that are public. I'm lucky to be in a few which are private support systems for men. But however, we do not have that. I am now at that space where I am encouraging and I'm building those spaces for men. And the spaces that I'm in for men, I'm also encouraging men in there to speak, to talk. We reach out, we talk openly, and we're building that space. It's a lot of work. It will take myself and a number of other men to be able to get to the point where we can be able to accommodate as many men as possible. A safe space, basically a cave where a man cave, a place where we can just come sit and talk about our issues without being judged. I also say men are also toxic. I don't want to be so hard on the women. In fact, to be honest, I've met amazing women who have been very caring and very loving on this journey that I have been in. Completely opposite, exactly what I wanted for, at that particular point, that care. So yes, there are women who are very who look at things openly and very maturely. And I'm very happy to be on this particular network where it's a women's empowerment network, and it's about empowering women to be better, number one. So any information that can help women to also understand their men better and have better relationships, because that's the point. I'm happy to be able to help any man move and be able to help him move from the stage that he's in to a better stage in their relationship. And yes, if you have a partner, of course, who supports you, definitely talk to them, definitely tell them. And I'm glad that women who I know, a number of them who have tuned in, I know a lot of them are support system for their husbands, especially in this COVID season where a lot of men are struggling again with job loss. I'll tell you right now, a lot of men are contemplating suicide, because men are valued based on what they bring to the table. If you pay rent, if you pay school fees, if you pay everything. And it's very unfortunate, because that's how women grade us. I always tell men it's like a joke, but if you ever meet a woman who treats you like a slave, be very careful. You know, you're not the right person. Whether it's work, whether it's at home, because that's not what we are meant to be. We're not just meant to be people who just, all we do is just we provide, we pay for bills, we do everything else, but we're not supposed to break down. It doesn't work like that in real life. And I'm happy because a lot of women are who, from my last talk, a lot of women also got that, and they, you know, they reached out to their husbands, had chats with their husbands. They're having better opportunities.
Magnus has frozen. Just give him 2 seconds. He should be back. I'll read up some of the comments. I'll read one from John Jengangugi, who says, Magnus, this is a tough topic. I have seen people who have been in the military crumble because of situations that they could not handle. Mental health can affect anyone. Thank you for opening up, especially in the African community. Respect. Who else has written? Let's see. I don't know how we're gonna get Magnus back. He seems to have frozen. Well, he seems to have disappeared. Sorry, guys, I don't know what has happened to Magnus. It's just disappeared. Let me see. He's back now. Magnus is back now.
Yes, sorry about that. It's the network.
That's all right.
Yeah,
that's all right. I was just reading a comment here from John. Let me see. He says, this is a tough topic, and I've seen people who have been in the military crumble because of situations that they could not handle. Mental health can affect anyone. Thank you for opening up about it, especially in the African community. Respect. Keith is asking, is depression preventable? Is there a face mask for depression? Did you wear a mask, Magnus? Would you say you wore a mask? You had a mask on at the time?
Well, a mask to pretend that it was not happening, yes.
Yeah.
Men are very good at wearing masks and pretending, women with each other. We are very good at pretending that things are not happening, we don't have pain. Why? Of course, because of, I say again, when what I was saying is we have a lot of societal pressure. We are told we must be a certain way, we must produce, we must bring something to the table, we cannot break down, we don't have an opportunity to be serviced. Even a car needs to go in service, you know, for a while and stay away from the road, you know. And what women, and I say women, what women demand of us is untenable. And for any man to be in a situation where I was, it's very sad, because I feel that pain. I tell women, please understand. Right now, I'm very privileged to be on your network, because I mean, I'm the first guy to be on African Women Empowerment Network. So
yes.
And I'm privileged to be able to talk, especially to women, and just say, please support. Their brother. It could be your husband. It could be your brother. It could be your cousin. Please support us. Please support us, because sometimes we don't know how to talk about it. We don't even know what to say. But if you notice some of the changes that we are going through, we ask that you be supportive and don't gaslight. Don't put us through hoops and want us to jump through hoops to really prove that we are not okay. You can't see depression. Is depression preventable? I honestly, I think without all the pressure that I went through, I wouldn't have sunk that low. Without all the things happening from both sides, work and home, I wouldn't have sunk that low. So yes, I would say yes, it is preventable in a way. If I had got the right care and the right empathy before, I don't think I would be telling this story like this. However, there's a reason that I went through that, and I say it's always to be able to help another man, and another woman to be able to also understand, because women are also going through depression. And I say, look at someone. We are meant to work together as human beings. We are meant to coexist as man and woman. We are not there to fight. And I'm so glad that I'm on this network, especially for women, because a lot of the things that are coming out, especially from women empowerment networks. And when men hear empowerment, we just know shida, problem at home, problem. Because that is it's a stereotype. It's a stereotype. When you hear empowerment, just those groups, they should leave us. They should not live, they should not sign the property for us. They should not sign anything for us. They should not give us loans. We should perform as men. If they don't, they leave us. A lot of those groups that we hear, and I'm telling you from groups that I'm in as a man, we hear empowerment and we're like, oh, that's negative. It's going to fight us. It's not good for us. But I'm glad that I'm in on this network, because it gives me an opportunity to I know what empowerment is about. I know what the feminism again is about, and I know what it is not about. And a lot of the problems that are bringing upon even a lot of the depression to men, I would say, from my perspective, having gone through it, is being with people and feminists who are necessarily not feminists, but there are people who are just really out to be, they're actually narcissists hiding behind feminism. So using that as a conduit to be able to put down men, say men are trash, men are, if you don't get get another one, you're quickly replaceable, you're not useful. That is very toxic. That is very toxic talk, whether it comes from a woman or it comes from a man, it doesn't matter. Yeah. But I'm glad that women are starting to see the difference between what they're fighting for, which is empowerment, and being able to also empower the people, the men you are with. If you're in a relationship with a man and you have, remember, women have always been it's almost 20 plus years of empowerment for women. For men, it's almost, we're almost in infancy, just trying to get our foot in. And when women are getting the empowerment, this empowerment is for you to be able to help yourself, and also you to be able to expand yourself and your family. It's not for you to be able to run away from your man now that you've got independence and freedom. That's not the point. And I say, anyone who's been told that, because I've experienced that, easy chama watu wanaenda wanafanya empowerment za wanawake, those ones should just stop. And it's the same for boys clubs. I always say some of those chamas, they're called chamas, but they're really out to bash men. It's the same for boys clubs, the chalangos, the who, as all are rubbish, really out to put down women. That's not the point of where, as men and women, we should be. And a lot of this, is it preventable? Yes. If we are able to love each other and care for each other, and remember that we owe each other human decency and fairness and justice. Each other, we owe each other something. It's important. And anyone who tells me, the world does not owe you anything, no one owes you anything, is a narcissist. Get this, shut up. Because that is exactly what narcissists say. I want people to understand that we are meant to coexist and be together. If you think that no one owes you anything, or you don't owe anybody anything, it must be something you're hiding, you did bad, and you don't want to account for it. It's like saying the Holocaust didn't exist, or 9/11 doesn't exist, or Mau Mau didn't exist. Something that was terrible back then didn't happen, and no one owes them anything. The truth is, if we look back and say, how can we prevent some of these problems that we have, especially with men? From my perspective as men, is women should listen. Women should just listen to us. Women should use the empowerment they have to help back on this other side, because a lot of men are struggling right now. Especially post-COVID, a lot of men are really struggling. Yeah.
So what I'm hearing you say, or what I can say, is women really need to listen. When men speak up, let us listen, especially when they're saying that they are going through a hard time. Angela Karanja says, an empowered person never puts another person down. Instead, they empower the next person. Let me just read this comment over here, and then we'll sort of wrap up. Sami Minor says, very important comment, actually, very good comment. Great job, people. I think that in as much as the boy child is toughened, as in the case with their rite of passage, where applicable, they need also to be encouraged to open up by developing safe spaces. And this ought to begin at the foundation level and should be driven by parents. I fully agree with that. Yes. Really, it is quite important. We, as when we are raising the boy child as well, let them know that it's okay to talk, It's okay, as much as they've been tough, and let them know. I mean, let us make it a thing that they can talk, that they can open up to us, not just telling them to man up, men don't cry, all those stereotypes. I mean, things that happen, don't be weak,
Yeah.
So let me just ask you this question, Magnus.
Yes.
When we're wrapping up now, what are some of the things that you're doing to stay healthy and maintain positive recovery? I know you've said that you're doing what's right for you, but is there anything else that you'd like to add to that?
One thing that I tell any man right now who's going through a tough time is you've got to make a decision, and a decision comes from the word decide comes from, it's a Latin word. it's the same as suicide, homicide, that side. You have to decide. Decide means to cut off. You have to be able to say, what don't I want in my life anymore, and what doesn't work for me anymore. So that's the first thing that I did. I was able to cut out bad habits, bad association, bad and toxic jobs and relationships. On top of that is a key thing you must be able to do as a man. But mostly you must also be able to just look at yourself and really look deep inside and look for that strength inside. I really work. I work out a lot nowadays because it's important, to just keep my mind fit. I work out every single day. It's just a process that I have been able to keep for myself. I work out every single day. It keeps my energy levels up. I also try and read every single day. Like I said, I have a very photographic memory, so I try and avoid watching TV and shows that will probably put in certain thoughts and patterns in my head. I try to keep everything for me very simple, very easy, very a lot of pressure. I'm used to doing a lot of things under pressure, but I also like my me time. I like being able to have time to be able to just unwind. That's very key for me. And any man who's going through depression, going through a hard time, you must find a way to unwind beyond the bar. The bar is not a place to unwind. By the way, it's not. It's not. And I think for me, that is what took me out of the bar. It took me out of a place where I went to a place of solitude, a cave, where I could be able to sit and listen to my thoughts, read, listen to music, work out, and just be myself, be the best that I can be. It takes a lot of patience on your part. You have to be kind to yourself because a lot of people are not kind to you, so you have to be kind to yourself and know what works and what doesn't work. And just be honest about it and be brutal about it, because your life depends on it. By the time you've gone through depression, you've stared death in the face a couple of times. I don't think it should scare you to walk away from situations and people that are not working for you, because your life really depends on it. Your destiny depends on it. Your children, especially for people like for me, I'm a father. My child really depends on me, and I've got to be able to make decisions now that favor me to be able to help her. Because if I don't do that, then all I've gone through is for nothing. Yeah.
Okay. So Magnus, finally, I must commend you for the great job you're doing on raising awareness on depression in men and the expectations of society. My final questions before we close down is, how can people get in touch with you? Say, for example, somebody wants to talk to you about it. Oh, I see. Sorry, let me just read Winnie. Winnie Wanderi says, Magnus, you should add diet to that list.
Oh, yes, diet is there. Yes, definitely. Thank you. Thank you, Winnie. That is a big one. That is huge. I mean, I think one of the things for me, if you're going through depression, you're going through this particular hard time, kill the alcohol. The alcohol won't work for you. Look for an outlet that is healthier and being able to help you. For me, of course, reading the Bible is a huge thing for me. It gives me a lot of strength and it gives me a lot of energy to know that I'm not doing this alone. I have God with me to be able to help me to go through each and every challenge. Diet, of course, is a very big one. Someone has said, if I just go to Keith, has just said, what is good for me? Can it be termed as selfish? At that point, I say, when you stare death in the face, Keith, not once, not twice, you've got to make decisions that are good for you.
Yeah.
You're no longer making decisions that are good for anybody else. If it doesn't work for you, don't make that decision. That's why I said I use the word decide. Decide is from Latin. It means to cut off, and to cut off is a very difficult thing. So it's either you have to decide whether to keep your mental health or decide to dabble in things that are messing up with your mental health. It's a very tricky thing. As a man, you've got to use wisdom. I thank God because I've been able to have mentors and partners who are very good to me, who keep me in check, and who let me know certain decisions that I'm making, the repercussions, who look beyond that and say, hey, this decision you're making might not be too good for you. And before I make the decision, even if I do make it, I know that. And as a man, you've got to be able to make hard decisions at that point in your life. Otherwise, if you don't make hard decisions, you're gonna be swept over by the wind. If you don't have a stand in anything that you do, you're gonna be swept over. And one of the biggest stands I also made is to speak to people, to speak to men about depression, to tell them, come out, talk to us, talk to me. If you want to talk to me, you can reach me on my Facebook page, Magnus MG. You can hit me. You can send me a message. Send me a message. If you want to find me on LinkedIn, I'm also there on LinkedIn. The link is on my Facebook page. You can go directly to my LinkedIn and catch me there. I love being able to talk to people and directing people to the right help, to the right people who can help them, to the right spaces for them, especially men. For women who reach out to me, I also empathize and I also push them to the right spaces, because I know, for me, I'm not a counselor. Like, you're in the field, so the most that I can do is direct people to the right decisions and say, here, there's a list of number of places you can go. There's people you can talk to, or talk to this person and take it forward. But I love that every single time I speak, at least one person comes to me and tells me, thank you. And I can be able to direct them to the right people. So feel free to reach out. I take a lot of, I listen to people a lot. I speak to people a lot about the experiences. I listen to them and also tell them my experiences, so they know they're not alone. So they know that they can also go through this. That they know that they can also have someone to support them. I also lead them a lot to ask about family who can support you, and I just help people see the brighter side of where you are. Basically, the seed of equivalent benefit. How can you move from where you are to where you want to be at that point? Yeah.
Sorry, guys, I don't know what happened. We went slightly off. Actually, we're just done. That's fine. Magnus, I must say something that you said that one of the things that I found, we had two nurses come here and talk to us about postnatal depression. And one of the things that they said, one of the ladies said, is that if somebody is going through depression, they need to keep off the alcohol, which you said you found very important for you. You know.
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the things that I really don't like that men do, and I say, men, stop it, is when someone comes to you, they're probably in depression at that point. Then you say, come nikubaye, come I go buy you a drink. This person is struggling with it. They're almost in the pit of depression, and you want to buy them a drink. And men are so mean. They don't even buy you nyama and ugali to eat. They'll buy you that drink. It's terrible. You don't understand what they're dealing with here.
So maybe we need a different kind of support structure, not the bottle. Anyway, guys, thank you so much to our audience for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Magnus, I must say, it's been brave of you. Finally, I would like to say, when people are going through depression, it can be an isolating experience. But the more we are open about it, the more we tackle the stigma, the more we tackle the shame, the better. And also, people, let us allow the head to be part of the body. We go to hospital for other things, but when our mental well-being is not okay, we ignore that. Let us not devalue our mental well-being. Thank you to our audience for joining us, and thank you for. Until next time, join us next time for another episode of African Women Empowerment Network, where we believe that when we empower one woman, we empower a generation, we empower another woman, and we empower a nation. God bless you all, and thank you for joining us. Join us next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Magnus.